Men don't lose women by doing too much wrong, but by not leaving a mark. They think she lost interest because of timing, misunderstandings, or some emotional mystery they'll never crack. But the real reason is much simpler and much more brutal. They became irrelevant. Not hated, not betrayed, just quietly replaced by a man who knew exactly what to do and what never to do. And here's what most men don't realize. In today's world, being irrelevant is worse than being disliked. Because at least if she hates you, she's still thinking about you. But if she forgets you, you're done. This video breaks down 6 things dangerous men never do with women. These aren't cliches. They're deadly mistakes that silently weaken your power, your presence, and your position in her life until it's too late. Each mistake is subtle. Each one is common. And every single one of them is something you might be doing without knowing it. Fixing just one could shift how she sees you. Fixing all 6 will make you the man she never dares to play with again. So stay until the end. Because whether you're single, dating, or married, these truths apply to every man, in every stage of the game. And what you'll hear today could change how women respond to you forever. Let's begin. Mistake 1. You give her a role she never earned. A woman walks into your life. She's pretty. She's different. She makes you feel something. And instantly, you forget who the prize is. You start imagining the future. You treat her like the one. You speak to her like she's already earned your loyalty, your time, your presence, your heart. But here's the brutal truth. When you treat her like a queen before she's lifted a single stone to build the kingdom, she doesn't feel lucky. She feels powerful. And power without effort breeds entitlement. Machiavelli warned, when a favor is given too freely, it breeds resentment, not loyalty. Why? Because when people receive more than they've earned, they start to believe they deserve even more, without ever fighting for it. This is exactly what happens in modern dating. You meet a woman, and instead of making her prove she's different, you assume she is. You send long messages. You cancel plans for her. You answer immediately, reschedule your day, and talk about things you haven't even told your closest friends. She doesn't have to earn your time. You donate it. She doesn't have to pass any tests. You act like she's already passed them all. And suddenly, she starts to pull away. Not because she's evil, but because she didn't invest. So there's nothing to protect. Now here's what dangerous men do instead. They don't reward possibility. They reward reality. They observe. They measure. They wait. Not to manipulate, but to protect what's sacred. If she shows consistency, they open the door a little wider. If she adds peace, they extend the invitation. But they never rush to hand her a role she hasn't fought for. If you're single, don't let beauty blind you. Let behavior guide you. No woman should be granted access to your time, energy, or emotion before proving she respects them. If you're in a relationship, just because she's yours doesn't mean she's still acting like it. Stop praising her for old efforts. Watch how she moves now. If you're married, titles don't freeze time. Reverence, just like respect, must be earned again and again. Even queens get dethroned if they forget what their crown was built on. Because a woman who earns your attention defends it like territory. But a woman who's handed the kingdom before she lifts a finger will always find a reason to burn it down. Now let's move forward. Because the next mistake makes you invisible, even while you're standing right in front of her. Mistake 2. You don't create emotional contrast. You're kind. You're available. You're consistent. You always reply with a smile. Never raise your tone. Never let her wonder what you're feeling. And that's exactly the problem. Because when a woman knows exactly what you're going to say, how you're going to act, and where she stands, she stops feeling anything at all. There's no curiosity, no spark, no mystery. Just emotional flatline. In her mind, you become a room she's already explored. No secret doors, no shadows, no tension, and nothing new to discover. Machiavelli didn't speak of love, but he understood influence better than anyone. He said, "A prince must learn to frighten and fascinate, not simultaneously, but strategically." In other words, you don't need to be dangerous all the time. You just need to be unpredictable enough that she never stops watching you. In real life, you call every day. You text good morning. You explain why you were busy. You apologize before she even gets mad. You say yes before she even finishes the question. You've become emotionally transparent. And transparency in dating is not intimacy. It's the death of polarity. Now here's what dangerous men do. They move like the weather, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, sometimes bright like a summer afternoon, sometimes distant like a storm building in silence. Not to manipulate, but to lead. Because a woman doesn't obsess over sunshine. She obsesses over the man who makes her feel something unexpected. If you're single, don't show her your whole emotional palette on the first canvas. Make her curious. Let her peel back the layers. Today you're bold. Tomorrow you're contemplative. Let her wonder, who is he really? If you're in a relationship, don't let routine define your rhythm. Break the pattern. If she expects silence, surprise her with depth. If she expects softness, stand firm without flinching. If you're married, don't confuse security with stillness. Desire needs motion. Let your wife rediscover you in new ways, emotionally, spiritually, even physically. Don't just be her husband. Be the man she still wants to figure out. Because when she never fully owns your emotional map, you stay alive in her mind. And when a man lives in her imagination, he never has to beg for her attention. Now let's move forward, because the next mistake makes you powerless, without even realizing you gave your power away. Mistake 3. You think understanding her equal winning her. You read the books, you watch the podcasts, you learn her love language, study her childhood trauma, memorize every emotional trigger she might carry. And what do you do with all that insight? You listen, you validate, you adapt. Sounds noble, doesn't it? You think you're showing emotional intelligence. That being the man who gets her is the fastest way to keep her. But here's the Machiavellian truth. What is fully understood stops being desired. Because desire is born from curiosity, not clarity. A woman doesn't obsess over the man who reads her like a book. She obsesses over the one who feels like poetry she can't quite interpret. Machiavelli said, "To command respect, one must appear rare." And that's where most men fail. They become so emotionally available, so psychologically fluent, that they collapse the very mystery that made them magnetic. Mistake 4. You explain instead of enforcing. She crosses a line. You feel it. But instead of drawing blood with silence, you draw paragraphs with your mouth. You explain why it bothered you. You try to communicate like an adult. You want her to see your side, understand your pain, maybe even apologize. But here's what really happens. Every sentence you speak after disrespect bleeds authority. Machiavelli didn't write self-help books. He wrote strategies for survival. And in his words, a prince must be a lion and a fox. The lion doesn't explain its roar. In relationships, that means if you have to explain your boundaries, you don't have any. Because power isn't spoken, it's felt. In real life, she flakes on your date at the last minute, and you text her, "I would have appreciated some notice." She laughs at your goals, and you say, "That really hurt me." She pushes your limits, and you tell her, "Please don't do that again." All of it sounds reasonable, and all of it sounds weak. You're asking for respect instead of commanding it. You're turning your standards into negotiable feelings. If you're single, you get caught in endless text arguments. She ghosts, comes back, and you talk it through. You try to reason with a woman who already decided she doesn't need to. If you're in a relationship or married, you explain your frustration. You go in circles, hoping for her empathy. But the more you talk, the less she feels your edge. She probably won't tell you because she wants to protect you and maintain the relationship. Her desire has surely diminished. Here's the fix. Stop announcing your limits. Start enforcing them. If she mocks your ambition, you stop sharing your vision. If she disrespects your time, you disappear, no closure. If she tests your patience, you withdraw without noise. You don't need to be rude. You need to be remembered. And nothing leaves an impression deeper than calm, unapologetic action. Because in the kingdom of love, words are decoration, but actions are law. Now let's move forward. Because the next mistake turns you from a prize into her unpaid therapist. Mistake 5. You make yourself available for nothing. She doesn't ask. She doesn't invest. She doesn't even respond with real interest. And yet, you show up. You reply fast. You double text. You react to her stories like a loyal pet hoping for crumbs. You give validation like a man trying to earn a seat at the table when you built the table. And here's the cold truth. The more freely you give your presence, the less she feels your value. Machiavelli didn't study Instagram, but he studied human nature. And he wrote, "The value of anything is determined by its scarcity. A man who's always available becomes background noise. He fades into the feed. He becomes the guy she knows will always be there, so she never bothers to look for him." In real life, you send her a good morning text. She reads it, but doesn't reply until night. You hype up her new picture. She leaves you on scene. You ask if she's okay. She says, "I'm fine," and never asks about you. And yet, you stay. If you're single, you chase women who don't match your energy. You validate before she's done anything to deserve it. You reward indifference with more access to you. If you're in a relationship or married, you carry the emotional weight. You initiate every conversation, every plan, every touch, and she starts to believe, without ever saying it, that you need her more than she needs you. Here's the fix. Your attention is currency. Spend it like a king, not a beggar. Withdraw from the ones who don't invest. Pause before replying. Observe who earns the next layer of you, instead of handing it out by default. Because the more easily you're accessed, the less urgently you're remembered. Now let's move forward. Because the final mistake doesn't just weaken your image, it erases it completely. Mistake 6. You want recognition more than control. You don't say it out loud, but deep down, you want to be seen. You want her to notice your effort, to recognize your loyalty, to look at you one day and say, "You're not like the others." That craving for approval, validation, recognition is the final nail in the coffin. Because here's the twisted truth. The man who needs to be praised is already beneath the one who chooses when to praise. Machiavelli saw this clearly. He wrote, "The need for approval makes men easy to rule." In love, that means this: if you do things for recognition, you've already surrendered control. You're performing, you're hoping, you're waiting for the crown instead of taking the throne. Here's the fix. You don't need to be her mirror. You need to be her mystery. Don't interrupt her emotions with explanations. Let silence speak. Let your actions be felt more than your words are heard. Be the man who listens, but never lets himself be fully decoded. Because when she can't finish the puzzle, she keeps playing the game. Now let's move forward. Because the next mistake sounds noble, but it silently destroys your authority. In real life, you say things like, "I get it, you're just overwhelmed," or "It's okay, I understand why you're distant," or "I know it's not about me, it's your attachment wounds." And what you think is connection is received as predictability. She files you under safe, and safe becomes boring. You've made yourself the emotional butler of her inner world, always understanding, always supportive, always on call. If you're single, you try to get her too soon. You mirror her, soothe her, anticipate her feelings. But instead of sparking desire, you trigger comfort. And comfort, too early, kills momentum. If you're in a relationship or married, you try to manage the emotional weather of the house. You stop being the man of mystery and become the man of maintenance. The fire goes out, not because you did something wrong, but because you stopped being slightly unknowable. If you're single, you give too early. You initiate everything, and you wonder why she stops valuing your presence. If you're in a relationship or married, you take care of things, not from power, but from expectation. You hope she sees your effort as proof of love, and each time she doesn't acknowledge it, you shrink a little more. Here's the correction. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be felt. Speak less. Expect nothing. Do what you do because it aligns with your standard, not because you want a reaction. Because the man who moves without needing recognition becomes the storm she never saw coming, but can't ignore once it hits. Now let's close this, because everything you've heard leads to one final truth, and if you absorb it, you'll never be forgotten again. Conclusion. Irrelevance doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in slowly, like a shadow you didn't notice growing behind you. Not because you lacked charm, not because you weren't enough, but because you kept giving yourself without control. You texted too fast. You explained too much. You offered too soon. And in doing so, you diluted the very thing that made you powerful. Presence. See, most men fade not because they lacked value, but because they traded that value for attention, affection, or approval. And in doing so, they became predictable, comfortable, forgettable. But the dangerous man, he knows something the others don't. That relevance isn't maintained by constant effort. It's maintained by restraint, by contrast, by absence. He doesn't need to beg to be remembered. He knows that silence, when used strategically, is louder than any confession. He knows that every moment of unpredictability creates emotional gravity. And that emotional gravity, that's what pulls her back, again and again. Because women don't remember the man who was always there. They remember the one they could never fully figure out, the one who shifted their certainty, who rewrote the rules in real time without needing permission. So no, don't fight to be relevant. Don't ask for recognition. Don't explain your worth to be chosen. Move like a man who knows he's already chosen, by life, by purpose, by power itself. Be the man who walks away not out of spite, but out of strategy. The one who can vanish and still leave her room colder. Because that's the man she'll dream about. The one who didn't try to be everything. Just the one she can never replace. Let that be you. If this opened your eyes and you're serious about becoming the man who's in full control of his life, my book is now available. The Undeniable Man, Built to be Chosen. It's a strategic guide for men who want to attract, lead, and dominate in their love life and beyond. Whether you're single or in a relationship, no fluff, no tricks, just pure, powerful strategy that will set you apart from 99% of men, and that you will actually use every day. The link is in the description. And if this video spoke to you, don't just keep your thoughts in your head. Write a comment, even just a few words. It helps you remember these lessons, and it might help someone else too. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this content, and share it with someone who, in your eyes, needs it right now. Just trust your instinct. We're all trying to get clearer, more solid inside. So let's build minds that don't break.